Welcome into Before Floor, an extension of 5 on the Floor here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at 5 Reasons Sports and at Ethan J. Skolnick. Today, got a full house. Everybody's back. Not for the Heat, but for us. So who's in, who's out with us? Jonathan Roblicott, you can follow him at 3-Piece Combo. We got Brady Hawk. You can follow at Brady Hawk 305. Greg Sylvander, you can follow at Greg Sylvander. And Ricky J. Mark, you can follow at Ricky J. Mark. We are sponsored, as always, by our friends over at Biscayne Bay Brewing, the official beer of the 5 Reasons Sports Network and of the Miami Marlins. You get the Marlins Lager. Here you can get the Tropical Bay IPA here at FTX Arena. It's the 100 level and the 300 level. The Regatta Double IPA. And the other great beers of Biscayne Bay Brew, which you can get also at local restaurants like Quarterdeck, another one of our sponsors, as well as many local supermarkets such as Publix, Winn-Dixie, Whole Foods, and the like. So check out Biscayne Bay Brew, the official beer of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also check out our friend Mark Brown, MARC, brownpa.com. He's the man with a plan. If you need an estate plan, go to him. He's in North Lauderdale, right off of Andrews Avenue, off of Cypress Creek Road. So that's the North Lauderdale area, real close to I-95. Great small office there that can help you with everything, with all the forms, tell you which ones to fill out, give you an idea of where your money is going to go. Okay, this is important, particularly if you're young with a family. Get on this now. 954-566-5678, 954-566-5678, or Mark Brown, MARC, brownpa.com. All right, let's get to it, guys. The Heat, the Mavericks, the last home game before the All-Star break. The Mavericks coming into town after making a big trade. They get rid of Kristaps Porzingis, and it has seemed since that Luka Doncic is even more engaged. It seems like this is a trade that he perhaps wanted. Of course, the Heat are in Charlotte on Thursday. Greg is actually going to be there on Thursday, so he'll bring you coverage from the arena live. I'm here tonight with Alex, so blame me if something goes wrong. Brady, who's in, who's out?
Yeah, Jimmy Butler and Caleb Martin are going to warm up with the intention to play. He said we'll see, but then they pretty much marked it as they're intending to play. Caleb Martin playing is interesting because they're going to have basically a full youthful bench because Dwayne Dedmon was a late scratch with some back spasms. So that obviously means Omer Yurtseven will be playing. That's along the bench 9-man rotation with Gabe, Max, Caleb, and Omer. So it's a pretty young group there. And Tyler Hero was the other one who's been out. He was asked about if it could lead into the All-Star break because there's one more game up ahead, and he said possibly. And I think that pretty much does. He's not playing on Thursday. Like, that feels obvious. Him playing the last game, he mentioned it was, nothing too serious, but it was just when you play a game like that, you don't have time to recover that knee, and it's just getting this, happening right around the All-Star break. I don't think there's a better time for him to kind of heal this back up than right now. And then obviously on Dallas' side, you mentioned they got Spencer Dinwiddie, so this is going to be probably his first game. He wasn't on the injury report. And then an interesting thing to mention because they're playing the Heat, no Tim Hardaway Jr., because I feel like that's the guy we talk about on these pregame shows every time they end up playing Dallas.
All right, Caleb Martin playing today, it appears, and Greg, he got the contract. He got the full-term contract for the rest of the season. Certainly deserved, certainly expected. Heat fans are always panicking about these things, and we're always like, okay, they have a plan. All right, they're not going to let this guy walk. He'll be eligible for the playoffs. They took care of it today. But as you look kind of at what this means going forward, can you go through the other transaction type stuff? Because I know we're going to talk Goran here, so let's at least get started on it.
Yeah, so Caleb Martin was converted to a standard contract. They will have mechanisms with which to retain Caleb Martin this summer, but it is not a slam dunk if a team were to come out of nowhere with a really aggressive offer. So we'll see how that plays out. But the good news is he's eligible for the playoffs, as you mentioned. Haywood Highsmith, who I think we all could identify was a culture type fit when we saw the little bits of play from him earlier this season, signed a 10-day contract, which on the surface, that looks like the Heat have filled their roster, so they have no wiggle room for a buyout candidate, which actually is not true. And credit to Brian Goins, who brought this to the Twitter timeline related to the fact that they can waive Highsmith at any moment and it won't have any additional cap ramifications. So if they want to get in the buyout market, they can create a roster spot quickly. And they have two means. They can either give the prorated veteran minimum, or they can offer a 2-year deal using a little bit of exception money if you wanted to lock in the player for the next season, if maybe a player valued that guaranteed money going into next year. So they have two vehicles and they'll stay under the tax. I don't expect Goran to come because we haven't even seen Depot yet. So how the hell are we going to integrate Goran? But it would be a cool story.
All right, so let's get to that cool story. I know we're going to get back to the game here, guys. And obviously, it's an important game. It's a pretty good Western Conference team. I mean, it seems like there are 4 teams in the West, maybe 3.5, that have kind of separated themselves. Dallas and Denver have been sort of a stage below here this season. But let's get to the Dragic things. I know that's what people want to talk about. He got the buyout. We anticipated he would get the buyout. He could return to the Heat. He has obviously been hanging around the Heat quite a bit, along with Tyler Johnson and others. He's made it pretty clear he'd like to be here. But John, let's establish this. I mean, does it make sense? I mean, does it make sense for him, and it doesn't make sense for them?
I mean, for him, it doesn't really make sense either way, right? Because if he comes here, it doesn't seem like he's going to get any playing time. I think the only thing for him was if he really just wants to be in Miami, maybe be in a developmental role, a UD kind of role, help develop these younger guards, something like that. But as far as the Heat goes, I mean, you have Kyle Lowry as your starting point guard. I've loved what Gabe Vincent has developed into. And on top of that, Tyler Hero is kind of a combo guard. He can play a little point. He can, facilitate a little bit. Victor Oladipo is coming back as well. We have a lot of guards, and it's going to be tough to fit another guard that can't play defense on our team. So I don't see it really working out either way. I would love the story. If he wants to come back and just sit on the bench and he's okay with that veteran, just sit back role, cool. But I think for the Heat, there's probably even better options if you want to sign somebody.
Ricky, everybody, looks at these stories and they say, is the guy going to play for you? Is he not? I want to go back historically with you a little bit here with the Heat. The Heat have done a lot of reunions over the years. A lot of reunions. The 2 that jump out the most, of course, would be Zoe and Dwayne, right? Different circumstances. But Zoe came back and he filled – there was a legitimate role for him there. Like, there was a role behind Shaq as a backup center, and he obviously exploited that role, in the best way possible in Game 6 in Dallas and at times throughout that season. We also saw guys like Steve Smith and Eddie Jones come back later in their careers, right? People forget those reunions, okay? But those were significant Heat players that were brought back and really didn't do much, when they came back. What would a reunion like this, where would you put this one if it was to happen?
I would put this between Steve Smith and Dwayne Wade and co. Because, look, I understand why Heat fans want a guy that they loved to come back right as this team is in contention. But if I were to liken this situation to a real life situation that maybe some of us have experienced, it's like breaking up with someone and thinking, okay, we'll see each other down the line, only to come back and realize they're at a different point in their life and it's not compatible anymore. Gabe Vincent was an unexpected development for this team. And while I'm not completely sold on his total viability as a backup point guard, I'm confident enough to believe that if you throw him in a heated playoff game, he'll do his thing. I think at this point in Goran Dragic's career, much to the chagrin of certain Heat fans most likely, you're looking at a player that should probably go to a place where he'll likely get minutes and more consistent minutes. I don't see that happening anymore with this Heat team. Like Greg mentioned just now, we haven't even seen Victor Oladipo come back yet, and we've been debating we've already been debating who's going to be getting minutes or who's going to be losing minutes as a result of Depot's return. So I think for Goran Dragic, teams like the Bucks, teams like maybe even the Mavs, where he was technically already traded to for a couple hours before that trade was rescinded because of the Slovenian connection. I think it's time to move on. I mean, I'd love to see him win a title with Miami, but he got traded from the team. His number got replaced, and this was all after he did the whole sacrifice Heat culture thing, right? So I don't know. I think it's time for something different, and as much as I would like to, I don't see that working out this time around. There's too much basketball left in those legs.
Where's he going, Ethan?
It's a tough one. I think ultimately it may be Milwaukee. If you're looking at the best chance to win right now and get time, Milwaukee needs guards. Like they traded DiVincenzo. They don't have Connaughton for a month. I mean, they need other guys. And also, Drew is a guy who can play both spots. So you can play him with Dragic And he also can cover up for Dragic's weaknesses defensively. Like, if I look at all the fit, I know that's the last place that Heat fans want him to go, and I know obviously that will pull at Goran. And since he doesn't have real ill will towards the organization, he's not going to go there out of spite, which we've seen some players go places out of spite. But if I'm just looking at the landscape, I'm saying, okay, Dallas can use him, but they just brought in Dinwiddie. And they already, Brunson's played a bigger role this year. So does that one really make sense? Why would you go to the Lakers right now? I wouldn't want to be part of that bleep show in any capacity. Okay, he's 3 years late for that. So I mean, to me, it's Milwaukee would make the most sense. I mean, I thought Chicago maybe with Ball still out, but I would lean Milwaukee. But let me go to you and Brady on this, and I'll let you guys debate this a little bit. I actually think a Dragic reunion next season makes more sense, and I always thought so. Because the Heat will have some time to evaluate Oladipo. They may also make another move over the summer, and being able to bring Dragic in on a minimum, let's say a minimum contract or a cheap contract, might allow you to include Gabe Vincent in a trade if you wanted to. It feels more natural to happen this offseason. Look, I understand Goran wants to be in Miami. I think we sort of know about Goran's personal issues that he's dealing with right now, where I feel like being around old friends would be helpful to him. But I'll go to you, Brady, and then Greg, you can get into the mechanics of this from a cap perspective and everything else. But like from a personnel perspective, but Brady, wouldn't it make more sense to just get him in the mix next year if that's the case? I mean, how does it fit now?
I mean, I would go against that point just because I think if they bring him in this year or if it's next year, I don't think it's to perform in a rotation. Like, this feels like a Jimmy Butler friend that's going to be on the bench. They're going to have a good time. Like, that's what this feels like. Like, you guys were talking about reunions and bringing guys back. I just don't see it being here. We're going to send Gabe out and we need a guy to replace the production of Gabe as a backup point guard. Like, I just don't think that's what they're looking at him at this stage. I think if they do it, I would argue it makes more sense now because they're on a decent trajectory. They're in the 1 seed. You want to bring them in at a decent time because they're in a winning spot. I just feel like that makes more sense. But obviously, if they need some fillers, if they send a bunch of guys out in the offseason, they need some fillers. I think Goran's a guy that they would feel comfortable plugging in if need be. But I just don't think that's going to be the spot that they're in.
I mean, I think what we have to recognize is, and we did this on 5 on the Floor a lot last year, we kept waiting for Goran to be the Goran of the previous season, right? Like, we kept waiting for him to be what he was before the foot injury in the finals. We kept doing those hopeful podcasts. Remember, there was like a 16-point explosion against Chicago, and we were sort of like, okay, he's there. But the reality was, if you really looked at last season, he wasn't that good. And I hate to say that because I think a lot of it is he did rush back from the injury, and maybe he will get better now, Greg. But I think, and I'll go to Jonathan after this, but like I think we're thinking sort of Goran from the Eastern Conference Finals in the bubble, and I think forgetting kind of what happened last year.
Agreed. And also, he's been out this whole season. So then expecting him to come in and get into the kind of shape that these other guys who have been getting consistent reps and are hungry and are trying to like extend their vet minimum contract careers like Gabe is, I don't see that being and also we can't ignore the fact that the Heat don't need any more guards and they could use another big. So like, if we're going to really, mince words about who needs to have the last roster spot, it should be a player that they have positional needs for. But he can play all the home games in Brooklyn. I mean, that's one thing, because they don't have a point guard at home, but they have one on the road, which is bizarre. The Celtics have roster spots. But I don't know that he'll go there. So Milwaukee is like, that's the worst case scenario, because I would hate to face him. But they've got the roster spots. They signed Bembry today, so that's one of them. And then Goran would be another. So I don't know. Milwaukee feels likely to me, but this is a reunion for like on a vet minimum as a backup point guard in the coming seasons when the Heat are going to need players to contribute at vet minimum contracts. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, that makes more sense to me than now. I would go back to that. All right, let's pivot to tonight against Dallas. I mean, the 2 interesting games coming up before the break. In Charlotte, a team that can be a little bit up and down. We just saw them go in there last week, obviously. But Dallas, Jonathan, they're a weird team because you know what you're going to get from Luka. I still don't think they've built around him particularly well. And he's challenging to build around because he's a different kind of player, and also he doesn't really defend, which most of the superstars around the league these days do, which I think makes it harder to do it. But what are the keys tonight?
The keys tonight is pretty much just make Luka the one guy that has to beat you, right? Because they don't really have anybody else on their team that's going to do much damage. I mean, over the last couple of weeks, Jalen Brunson has been doing okay, about averaging about 15 points, 40% from deep. Trey Burke has been doing okay. Reggie Bullock has been shooting about 45% from deep over the last couple of weeks. So they have a couple shooters, that can hurt you. But at the end of the day, we talked about it about in the last game, they're going to probably do a lot of trapping with Luka Doncic, and they're not a very good team outside of him. Like outside of Luka, there's really nobody else that can hurt you. Maybe the addition of Spencer Dinwiddie will bring a little boost to them, but outside of that, it's not there. Offensively, I mean, main thing is just not turn over the ball. We've seen this team put themselves in holes and keep themselves, further than where they should be by just turning over the ball and giving up defensive possessions that way. So I think if they can keep the turnovers low and they can keep Luka the one guy that beats you, this is a pretty relatively easy game for us.
Spencer shot really poorly against the Heat the past couple times he's played against them too. So I don't know that I don't think this is the same Spencer Dinwiddie before the injury either. I feel like he's still a year out from getting back to where he was. Ricky, this stretch before the All-Star break, you're in the 1 seed, but you're not that far out of the 6th seed, the way that the Eastern Conference looks right now. So the significance of tonight and do they get the win?
You're at the arena, so no, they're going to lose, first and foremost. Second, Greg, you did mention that Brooklyn's point guard doesn't play in Brooklyn. I just would have to respectfully correct you on that. Their headache doesn't play in Brooklyn. They just traded for their point guard.
Good point.
So, all right, so there's that. Lastly, it's going to be an interesting setup, but even if I were to look ahead to the game later this week, I have a gut feeling that Jimmy doesn't play that game so he can have an excuse to sit out the All-Star game. This is just sauces. It's no sources. We know who the insiders in this network are, but y'all know what it is. But yeah, I think I already said that. And lastly, these will be my final remarks on at least on this pregame show. Eric Reed and Tim Hardaway deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, point blank, period.
There you go. And I know you put that out on Twitter again. Look, that wouldn't stun me, Ricky, but I think it won't happen now, and here's why. I think if Jimmy was going to ask out of the All-Star game, it's because he wanted Tyler to go in his place. That's what I'd heard. So if he had some kind of an injury this week, the fact that Tyler's nursing something also now, I think eliminates that possibility because there's no guarantee they would name Bam now, especially now that they've added Jared Allen, and he's not going to leave the Heat without a representative. Plus, I also know he's kind of already planned some stuff up there in Cleveland. So he's set to go, but I will tell you a week ago I would have agreed with you because he really would have preferred Tyler went in his place. That wasn't just stuff that he said at the podium. He really preferred that Tyler went in his place. So, but I think at this point he's stuck going to Cleveland, and I will tell you I'm not. I decided not to go. Greg, tonight, and then we'll close with Brady.
Yeah, to me, I mean, when a team is integrating 2 new players, I think you have a perfect opportunity to catch them slipping. The Mavericks don't turn the ball over very much. I think they're the third least turnovers in the league. So turn them over. Like let's throw some interesting defensive schemes at Luka, get the ball out of his hands. I'd like to see PJ Tucker on him a little bit. That was fun to watch PJ Tucker chase Kyrie around for a couple possessions. And y'all know what I pick. I mean, my prize pick of the night, though, let me quickly give it to you as I pull it up now. You are going to go over on rebounds for Bam, but I don't have the total in front of me because I don't want to hold this up, but go over on his rebounds.
Excuse me. Use that code 5 too when you go over on rebounds for Bam. Brady, take us home.
Yeah, I was actually going to say a lot of the same things Greg was saying. I think the first thing with integrating 2 new players is I don't think Dinwiddie and Doncic are maybe the best fit overall. So it's may take even longer time for them to find an offensive rhythm. And I think they're probably going to start PJ on him. I think they're going to blitz him a ton and send PJ and Bam at him. And like you guys were mentioning before, they're going to make these other guys beat him. And when you have a point guard that's basically, a bigger point guard like Doncic and Brunson playing off the ball, you allow Lowry to play in that spot. Like these are the defensive matchups that really fall into Miami's favor. So I think it's just more of a defensive challenge. And then you turn the page, you look at Charlotte on Thursday. It's a completely different type of team because it's more team offense and you just got to rely on rotations and movement. So it's interesting to close out this little stretch before the All-Star break with 2 totally different teams. But I also am just interested overall to just see Kyle continue to put these guys in their spots. It continues to the 5-game winning streak since Kyle's come back. Like, none of that is a coincidence. You're seeing him throw these full court passes to get Bam and Jim easy looks. They're just put in these offensive spots that are just such different than when it was those couple weeks when he was out there. I just want to continue to see that because that's the stuff that makes this team further down the line to look more dangerous.
These games are important because you get a 7-game winning streak going into the break, and you get yourself a little bit of cushion. Maybe not from the 2 seed, but maybe from the 5 seed, maybe from the 6 seed. You look at some of these teams that are going to be integrating players. Philadelphia, Milwaukee, maybe getting Brook back at some point. You want to get that cushion now. I think. I do think that they win tonight. I still don't like the roster construction around Dallas. Around Doncic. I don't think they've put the best pieces around him. And I agree with you. You don't put an inefficient shooter at a combo guard next to Dragic. It makes no sense, okay? I mean, the Dinwiddie is not the fit there, and it's a stopgap move, but I don't really get it. PrizePicks.com, use that code 5, MarkBrownPA.com. Thanks again for his support. And Biscayne Bay Brewing, go to the 100 level, 300 level, get it here at FTX Arena. Pace and space at halftime, post up 5R after the game, 5 on the floor after the game. And also, I talked for about 20 minutes this morning with Vinny Goodwill from Yahoo Sports. I can tell you, if you think nobody in the national media is following the Miami Heat, he's the one. Literally, watch it. He actually knows who their closing lineups are. He knows what kind of plays they're going to run down the stretch. There's literally one guy. I'm telling you. That's why I had Vinny on the program this morning. So check out. It's a good episode. And I should have sent you some stuff to clip, Ricky, but I will overnight. All right. Thanks to our producer, Alejandro Villegas. Everybody have a good night.
All right. Thank you, Ethan. Now we're going to listen to Eric Spoelstra's press conference talking about tonight's matchup against the Dallas Mavericks. And then we'll hear a little bit from the Dallas coach. And to close it out, a little bit of the podcast that our guys did for Monday morning or Sunday night about Bam Adebayo and if this is the late or the breakout that we're all expected to have from him. So let's go ahead and start with Eric Spoelstra first, talking about tonight's game against the Dallas Mavericks. Here we go.
Ask Jimmy Butler and Caleb Martin's status, please.
They will warm up, and then we'll see. They both went through shoot-around, but we want to make sure that they're both feeling great. Dwayne will not play today, and then we'll just treat him, and hopefully it's short-term.
What's Dwayne, if we can ask? I might have missed that.
Back spasms.
Okay. Can I just also get your thoughts on Caleb Martin getting converted? And I know everyone here is such a big fan of him. How good does it feel to get, that he takes that next step?
It feels great. This is just one of those things that was an inevitability that, we had to just get some things in order to be able to do it. But he's earned it. And when he first arrived here, there were no guarantees. We were just trying to get to know each other and put together a role where we thought he could be helpful. And he's embraced all of it and then some. And it's been, a joy to watch him work and commit to the process and then produce winning basketball.
Coach, we received some data today that over the years, the Miami Heat teams that you've coached have done the best job defensively overall against Luka. Is there anything?
Don't say that.
Well, it'll continue tonight, Coach.
No, come on, it's impossible. I thought the Clippers played him great. Really, you watch that game, it's like, first of all, the Clippers are a really good defensive team. And I thought, they mixed up their schemes. They had guys that physically, can handle different matchups. And then, he just torched them. It was really impressive. He's in a great groove right now. They're a great offensive team. They have spacing as well, so it makes it a little bit tough. We did not defend the other night, the way we're capable of. They had almost 60 in the paint and 35 in the fourth. So there will be some similar things that we'll be having to manage and negotiate, with Doncic. But it all starts, first and foremost with your commitment to the effort, commitment to discipline, because he's very good at drawing fouls. And then you have to have 5 players on a string.
Spoke kind of as a follow-up to that. you mentioned about the commitment and the things you have to do, but I mean, is there even a place to start of slowing him down at that challenge? I mean, where do you even start about
No.
trying to control play?
No, I mean, he's a great player, so he's going to challenge our team in a lot of different ways. We want to take that challenge defensively. We still want to get to another level. Ultimately, it's about us trying to impose our identity on the game, knowing that there's a great player on the other side. And we're also coming off a game where we did not defend well. So hopefully we can be better tonight.
With Tyler, he obviously returned from the right knee injury. Did something pop up during the game, or is it just lingering?
No, it's he's making progress with it, but if you're playing every other night, it's not going to totally resolve itself. So we think this is the best course of action, right now.
I know you take a game to game, but is the plan to keep him out until the All-Star break?
Possibly. That's something that we're discussing with the training staff. The answer is probably I'll just say everything we're managing right now is manageable, and a lot of the guys have the same response to me. They say, if this is the playoffs, I'm playing tonight. Well, it's not the playoffs, and want to make sure that we're, handling things so they're manageable right now and not leading to something else.
So, it's an interesting note, but the fact that you and Jason being the head coaches, both former point guards, and I don't know if you know this, but 11 of the coaches in the league, head coaches in the league, are.
Do not put me in that category.
No, I understand that, but our former point
I was a
guards
joke.
in college
So.
or the pros.
No.
I want to put you there, Spell. I want to put you in the category.
That's ridiculous because I was a joke.
11 point guards in the league as head coaches, either in college or pro. What is it about point guards? Is there a correlation there that you can think of as to why?
Well,
somebody made
I'll speak to just my observations about Jason Kidd. He's one of the historic, brilliant minds, of this association, and he could fully dominate a game with his mind. Even as he got into his mid-30s. He could manipulate, manage a game, keep everybody happy. He understood playbooks, understood his own team's strengths, understood other teams' strengths, and he would be able to disrupt whatever ATO or whatever action you're trying to get the ball somewhere defensively. He just had a knack for blowing up, everything that you're trying to do. I don't even know if you can teach that kind of level of IQ. You're talking about a high Hall of Fame IQ, and quite naturally, that would translate to coaching, and I think that's what you've seen. His teams play smart. This team does not turn the ball over. They take care of the ball. They are very coherent offensively, and I think probably one of the most underrated things about their team this year is they have a great defense. Where maybe in years past they, haven't really dominated games on that end. This year, they've actually been able to dominate games defensively, and then they have a great closer to finish teams off.
We're going to go via Zoom to Eddie Sefko with Mavs.com.
Hey, Coach. Kind of a broad question leading up to All-Star Weekend. There's going to be a whole bunch of international guys playing in the game, and of course the MVPs of late have been from abroad. Is this league reaching the point or getting close to reaching the point where the international, the tip top of the elite level of players is as much or perhaps even more from around the globe than it is perhaps in the U.S.?
Oh, I think we're way past, talking about the game just being in the U.S. This has been a global game for a long period of time. And it just shows you that, great basketball players can come from any region on this planet. And the game is growing and the interest is going. I think the NBA has done a fantastic job of growing the game and developing it. Even some places where you wouldn't necessarily think that it would be developed. I think it's well documented. Everybody knows that I grew up a Portland Trail Blazer fan. I still, Blazer fans, we always still hang on to that, the missed timing of, we had Petrovic and Arvydas Sabonis, but they couldn't, come over at the same time. If they did, I still think that the outcome against Ronnie's old Detroit teams possibly would have been different.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, Coach. Thank you.
All right, that was Eric Spoelstra before tonight's game against the Dallas Mavericks. Now let's go ahead and listen to what Jason Kidd had to say about this game against the Miami Heat before we actually go and listen to the podcast about Bam Adebayo and his breakout right now with the Miami Heat. Let's go ahead and listen to Jason Kidd now.
See. All right, let's talk about medical. Tim, Marquise, Theo, Reggie, Trey are all out. Trey left shoulder and Reggie's with the left hip, and Marquise right knee are all day today. That's it.
That implies both new additions will be playing. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you expect from them? How do you make it an easy adjustment for them to make here?
Yeah, we'll just try to put them in a position to be successful. We had practice yesterday, shoot around today. The one thing, it's basketball, so they know how to do that. It's just getting used to the language and then each other. They haven't had a chance to play with Luka or Brunson, so but they will today, and so we'll go from there. They've been in the league, so, and they haven't. This isn't their first time being traded, so they get the hardest part is the luggage that they have to bring. You know, all the bags and stuff that they have to carry around here for the next couple of days until the break, until they can get settled in. But yesterday's practice was good. I thought both were really, really good on both ends. They're going to make some mistakes, but that's just the nature of it right now. But we're excited to have them, and yes, they're going to play. There was thought of maybe starting Spencer with Reggie being out, but we'll bring him off the bench.
Personnel thing or systematic? The guys are getting, really on the upside.
Yeah, I think it's just there's a combination. New coaching staff. When you talk about the Mavs in the past, they've been one of the top teams offensively, and so we spent a lot of time with the language of playing defense, helping each other, not just individually, but we talk about more team defense and helping one another. And one of the guys that has caught on to it extremely well is Luka. Luka has been great for us in the schemes. And then we've also talked about just being able to rebound the ball when you don't give your opponent second or third opportunities. That's where your defense can go to, to a higher level. And that's what we've done of late. And now our offense is kind of caught up with our defense. So now we're just trying to figure out if we can do both.
Coach, that's supposed to be something about your high IQ as a player and how it helped you in so many ways, offensively and defensively. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you transitioned from being that high IQ player and competitor to your career as a coach and your past head coaching experiences? How about your evolution as a coach and what's helping you this year?
Yeah, I think the last 2 years being with Frank in LA has helped a lot. I've said that at the beginning of the season, and I'll say it today. Just understanding what it means. How to teach defense. What it means to be consistent, to communicate. But I think the biggest thing is, being able to communicate to the guys and put them in a position to be successful. Brunson was a guy that was coming off the bench. I felt if we put him next to Luka that he could help not just Luka, but himself, but the team. And sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. But it's just trying to put these guys in a position to to help us win, to get them paid, and then have fun doing it. I don't know if in that order, but all of them are probably 1A, 1B, and 1C.
Landon, go ahead.
Hey, Jason, you finished the homestand winning 4 out of 6. What positives do you take from those games as you look to carry into these final 2 games before the All-Star break?
Yeah, and I think you asked and answered the question. We won 4 out of 6. The homestand didn't start well, and you could say it didn't end. It didn't end well. But in between there was a lot of good basketball played. We protected home, and so if you ever have a homestand like that and you can go 4-2, I think we would all sign up for that. Thank you.
All right, that was Jason Kidd, the Dallas Mavericks coach, talking about tonight's matchup and the new acquisitions for the Dallas Mavericks. We have some breaking news for you, some updates on who's in and who's out for the Miami Heat tonight. Earlier today, we reported that Dwayne Dedmon and Tyler Hero were out. Dedmon because of back spasms and Tyler Hero because of some problems with his knee. And now Caleb Martin has been ruled out because of his ankle, actually, his Achilles. In the press conference, Eric Spoelstra talked about back spasms, but I guess this changed. So no Caleb Martin, no Dwayne Dedmon, and no Tyler Hero for tonight's game against the Dallas Mavericks. Let's go ahead and listen to a little bit of the podcast that Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, and Ethan Skolnick did on Bam Adebayo and his breakout lately with the Miami Heat as we go into the second half of the season. Here we go.
Advertise you.
Episodes of Starting Nine, Dono Daily, and many other streams. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss anything. Also, 5reasonsports.com. Make sure you spell that one out. The latest from Brady Hawk and others. We got a great piece about Mike McDaniel from Luke Chaney that just went up on the site as well. So we do cover more than just the Heat there, and we cover it for free, right? We do not have a paywall, so you don't have to pay that $3 a month with us. Also, we got a new sponsor here on the show. It's called NordVPN, Nord VPN, online security. Starts with a click. NordVPN encrypts your internet traffic and hides your IP and virtual location. NordVPN helps protect you against bandwidth throttling from internet providers, where ISPs slow down your internet to get you to upgrade. You don't want that. NordVPN, also allows you to switch your country IP address to access Netflix, Disney Plus, YouTube Premium, and all that other cool stuff when you're in other countries for cheaper prices. NordVPN offers unparalleled browsing security and protection from hacking of personal data. So get your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/5RSN. That, of course, is our product code, number 5RSN. Or use the promo code 5RSN to get a discount on your NordVPN plan and 1 additional month for free and a bonus gift at checkout. Okay, so the code again at nordvpn.com is 5RSN, all completely risk-free with NordVPN's 30-day money-back guarantee. nordvpn.com/5RSN, or use the promo code 5RSN and start saving with the world's leading VPN provider. And now, today's episode.
Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing rubber frauds. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the flow playing, got it all band. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's power have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, Ethan Skolnick back on 5 on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. We had a little bit of a break for the Super Bowl and for my birthday weekend, so appreciate all the well wishes there. I'm officially old if I wasn't before. Today's floor plan, I got Greg Sylvander. You can follow him at Greg Sylvander. I've got Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket. We have done Bam Adebayo episodes intermittently. I feel like they're always about the same thing. Because with Bam, it's not about talent. We know that. He can pretty much do anything, provided that he has the right mindset for it. And so when he came back from his long injury, we talked about mindset a lot. And then there was some blips there early on. Maybe he was feeling his way a little bit. Maybe the switch hadn't flipped for him, but it seems to have now. And there's statistical proof of this. This is an eye test thing, but it's also a numbers thing, Greg. And I know some of the others in the 5 Reasons Sports Network, whether it was Gad or Ariel or Brady, have helped us with some of these numbers. But everything is on the uptick right now. And I keep saying this, so this is how I'm going to preface this episode. We talked about the trade deadline and additions that they might need to make or might not need to make. And when PJ Tucker got hurt the other night, everybody's like, oh, God, they should have done something. And then we also talked about Victor Oladipo coming back. But I will maintain this, and I will continue to maintain this. The most important thing in the playoffs, because the minutes go up for your best players, because they have to match the minutes on the other teams, on the other team in terms of their best players, the most important thing is that your best players play at an elite level. That's how you win a championship. Bam Adebayo is starting to do that on the offensive end, Greg.
Yes. So I'm glad that you called out some of the folks in the network, because I sent out the bat signal to get some Bam stats, and Gadiel Cartagena, which you can follow at Gadiel Cartagena, Ariel Latias, and Brady Hawk, all part of the network, helped with these statistics. So shout out to those guys. Also, John Jablenka, he sent some stats as well that I think is worth calling out. So rather than go line by line on who gave me all of the stats, I'm shouting all y'all out right off the bat. This is crazy. So check this out. Bam's first 26 games, he was averaging 12.8 field goal attempts, 35% on shots outside 5 feet, 31% on pull-up jumpers, and 5.8 free throw attempts. In his last 6 games, he's shooting almost 16 field goal attempts a game, 44% on shots outside 5 feet, 44% on pull-up jumpers, 6 free throws a game. So that was, I thought, really eye-opening to just see how he heard us. He heard the aggression stuff. He heard you need to get more shots up. And then this is the other thing that coincides here. And I think that we'll kind of unpack all of the different angles of this as we go forward. But we would be remiss if we didn't mention that this coincides with Kyle Lowry returning. And a really interesting statistic around that is that Bam averages almost 2 more field goal attempts per game when Lowry plays. So Bam with Kyle is at 19, 10, and 3 on 14 field goal attempts at 53%. Without, he's at 17, 10, and 4 on 12 field goal attempts and 52%. So again, that's just showing that Kyle, it's kind of the perfect storm of Kyle being back, getting everyone organized, Bam finding his confidence, and them needing it right now more than ever also. So to me, it's all super positive, and we love when the eye test and the data support each other.
Alex, we talked about how Duncan Robinson needs Bam, right? I mean, he needs him as that trigger for dribble handoffs and everything along those lines. And to a certain degree, Jimmy and Bam need Duncan for space. But we also kind of predicted this, that Kyle Lowry is necessary to this equation also, because without him, they are the team from last season, except without Goran Dragic. And so, one thing that has stuck out to me, I want you to handle this more so than from the statistical standpoint, which Greg just covered, but from the how it looks on the floor standpoint. Because it seems to me that the one thing that Kyle Lowry does, and we said this, you and I both said this, and Brady said it during preseason, was the one thing that Kyle Lowry will not allow Bam is to do is to get off the hook. That when Kyle sends the ball into Bam, he gets out of the way. He's not going to allow Bam to send it back to him and go back to his instincts, which is unselfishness. And that's the kind way of putting it. There are other ways that we've described it here where he doesn't want to be aggressive, right? Where he's more of a type B personality than a type A personality. Kyle won't let him get away with that. How have you seen that manifest itself in the past 5 games?
Oh, I mean, it's just gotten to another level. Like, I feel like everything that everybody has been wanting to see from Bam, you've gotten it from him immediately, right, throughout these past few games. And even though he didn't take a whole lot of shots last game, I don't have it in front of me, but I remember looking at the shot attempts. It was pretty evenly distributed against the Nets. But the way that he was playing was in the flow of the game. And there was still moments where, you could have asked for more from him. I think there was one play where he had like Kyrie on him. He could have backed him down. But, he's gotten a lot better at it. And I think you see had these games where, the Hornets game, he took 21 shots. Other games he's taken more. And Leif just said the average is there. The numbers are the numbers, right? Like he's getting way more attempts. He's getting a lot of easy looks. And like you said, Lowry just doesn't let him kind of shy away from the opportunity when it's actually there for him. Because I think a lot of times it's like in his mind, like we talked about before, him scoring was kind of one of the lesser options. And it's more about getting everybody else involved with the amount of kind of guards they had that need screens to get open and get advantages. So I don't know. I think Lowry just makes the game easier for him where he just doesn't have to think too much. He doesn't have to try to make reads for everybody, make everybody better all the time. And this is stuff that we talked about going into the season. Like you said, we knew this was going to happen. But the way that it's happened the past few games, it's just been like, like if they've been playing together forever. And we know how little they actually got to play together before all the injuries and everything that's been going on with COVID. I just think in general, Lowry makes Bam's job so much easier. He's going to get him all the lob attempts. He's going to get him the mid-range jumpers when they're there. It's really just kind of simplifying the game for Bam.
And I think when you look at it from Bam's perspective, he has been annoyed. You can tell. I mean, he's made comments about this, about the idea that he has to score first, right? And I think it's twofold. I think one, it's that it denotes a lack of appreciation for the other things that he does. And that's one of I think the reasons that Spoelstra is always calling reporters out when they come after Bam on this. But I also think it's because Bam knows internally that it's an issue. And he has said it so many times after games, and we've pointed that out as well, Greg, that, he's acknowledged it. And then fans are always like, I don't want to hear this again, because it always comes after a game where he's had like 8 shot attempts. But I felt like the 7 for 21 was a breakthrough. And we talked about it a lot after that game, that I would rather have the 7 of 21 than the 5 of 9, because if he's taking the 7 of 21 and they win anyway, then I think that it kind of takes away one of the excuses for not doing it, right? Like, which is, well, if I shoot that much, I'm taking everybody else out of their rhythm, and I don't want to be unselfish, and I want to be the good teammate. But he went 7 for 21. He missed a ton of bunnies in that game, and they won anyway, right, Greg? So then we see the 7 for 21s are turning into the 12 for 21s, and that's when you start to have, again, that elevation from star to superstar.
Yeah, and you know who else doesn't like this conversation and gets very annoyed, borderline pissed when asked about it in post-game pressers? That's Eric Spoelstra. Like, he does not like the Bam field goal attempt conversations. And I thought Steve Jones Jr., who's on the dunker spot, he can be followed at Steve Jones 20. He pulled some clips from the recent game in Charlotte at what Bam does defensively and the things that he covers up for everyone else and the amount of floor that he covers up. And I just think the thing that gets lost on the offensive-minded fan who wants to see Bam get aggressive on that end is how aggressive and how much he's covering on the defensive end. And if that were to be quantified in counting stats, we maybe wouldn't have as much of a conversation about Bam being aggressive, because he's being so aggressive defensively. It's just not always in the way that we want to see it, which is offense. And so to see the offense start to catch up to the defense recently is really strong. But I think that we should also acknowledge to Eric Spoelstra and Bam Adebayo's credit is that the things he's doing as we're seeing this uptick in offense, the things he's still executing on defense, just shows like the reason why I keep screaming no ceiling. And so I would encourage everyone, go to Steve Jones Jr.'s timeline, watch the clips of him pointing out what Bam did in Charlotte. It's unbelievable, some of the stuff that he was able to do. And now it's gotten to the point, Ethan, where in the last game when Kyrie was going off, the Nets made it a point to never use the guy Bam was covering to come and screen for Kyrie so that they could never switch Bam onto Kyrie. That's an interesting thing to see a team do all of a sudden. And I just think that we shouldn't take it for granted.
Well, the other thing we shouldn't take for granted is that it's exhausting. I mean, what he's doing on the defensive end is exhausting. I mean, he's not Dwayne Wade. Okay. but Bam is being paid like a franchise player, and he is the sort of the next franchise mantelpiece, in terms of, going from Dwayne, and now you have sort of the Jimmy era, but ultimately it's going to be Bam or Bam with somebody else. And, I think that we forget that like Dwayne rested on defense for many years, right? I mean, greatest, 2-guard shot blocker in history. And certainly he was capable of doing plenty of great things on the defensive end. And we saw that in the Big Three era, even when he wasn't 100%, creating those skirmishes with LeBron and getting in the passing lanes. And Dwayne could lock you up if he was engaged in it, but he took a lot of possessions off, particularly late. And the defensive metrics showed it. Bam's not taking defensive possessions off, Alex. Like, I mean, he's literally the linchpin of the defense. I mean, even Jimmy, who is a great defender, is mostly playing passing lanes, which is not the same as what Bam is being asked to do. You can make an argument that Bam is asked to do more defensively than any other player in the league in terms of just ground he has to cover, different types of players he has to cover. The way that he has to cover up for certain guys on the Heat, we know Tyler Duncan and some others who maybe need it at times. So sometimes I just get the feeling on offense, he's kind of doing the opposite of what Dwayne used to do, which is that he's going to rest on offense, but not lately.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Like, that's kind of how I look at it too. And that's why I've always felt he's been worth the max contract since day one, is because like what he does on defense cannot be matched by most players in the world. Like, he's on the level defensively of Draymond Green, of, Kawhi in his prime, name other elite defender, insert other elite defender here, Giannis. Like, I just think in general, he is that caliber defender. And the versatility, like you were talking about there, like, it's immeasurable, right? I think it's really invaluable when it comes to Bam Adebayo, and people have talked about it in the past, including other players. Like, I saw a quote once, D'Angelo Russell, the Timberwolves point guard, talking about Bam and this exact stuff that we're talking about, just kind of like the defensive versatility and that being such a standout thing. I just think what he does is so impactful already. And now you talk about him turning it up on offense. He's been turning it up on defense too. Like, the steal and block percentages have actually gone up. Obviously, it's a small sample since he's been back, but like, they're up, and they're up by a lot. And then you talk about what he does already without the steals and the blocks. Like, it's just, he might be the best defensive player in the world. It's to me, it's him or Draymond. Like, I think obviously Bam is way more athletic. Draymond is kind of a quicker processor, but it's really just what he does is special. So now you got him kind of leveling up into this better, more aggressive offensive player. We all know what that does for the Heat ceiling and for Bam's own ceiling. I just think it's like the offense is catching up to the defense, and he's figuring it out. I think we've been saying it. This was going to be a gradual process, and it's happening gradually.
We're going to come back and talk about the next step because, like you say, Alex, it's happening gradually, but we're never satisfied, right? Like, that is, I mean, if you're going to compete for a championship this year with as many teams as are in the mix in the East, and then you got to deal potentially with a Phoenix or a Golden State or a Memphis, notice the team I'm not mentioning, or the teams I'm not mentioning on the other side, this has to keep going. And also, Bam may be required to help take care of the Heat's biggest weakness. So when we come back, we're going to talk about that, but we do want to tell you about another great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. So many of our sponsors here are local, and this is a new one, but you got to check them out. It's All Pro Construction Builders. In South Florida, no matter what the weather is, hurricane season is always around the corner. So get on it now. You got to protect your home or business. Make sure to contact All Pro Construction Builders. They specialize in impact windows and doors for residential and commercial properties. All Pro Construction Builders is a state-certified, licensed, and insured general contractor. They service Miami-Dade and Monroe counties. So again, everybody says we don't have anything to the south of us here in Broward. Miami-Dade and Monroe, they service both of them. They use only locally made products, American-made, and they're family-owned and operated. So you only deal with the owner from start to finish. Reach out to our guy, Danny, at 305-484-4429. That's 305-484-4429. They offer competitive pricing, but still quality service. And if you mention 5 Reasons Sports, any variation of it, you'll get a 10% discount, and you'll always get a free estimate. Again, check them out on Instagram. It's All Pro Construction Builders. Reach out to Danny at 305-484-4429. Support local. All right, let's get to the next step here. The Heat's biggest problem this year is, Greg?
They don't have any problems as far as
They
I'm
have
concerned.
a problem. Alex, what is their biggest problem this year?
I feel like a teacher's calling on me in class. It's like I'm starting to sweat profusely, but no, like
it's too cold to sweat today, Alex, and you're standing outside while you do this podcast.
Yeah, no,
okay?
I'm sitting outside trying not
that.
to disturb the people in my house, and I'm freezing because it's 62 over here, and that's freezing in South
Bring
Florida.
out the parka.
But no, seriously, I guess the Heat's biggest problem, if I had to say, is like consistent half court scoring when things get hard. And so I don't know if that's where you were going to go into with Bam, but obviously that's kind of been a huge improvement.
Particularly in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll start with you then, Alex. How does he help solve this? Can he be more involved in that process?
Oh, absolutely. Like, that's not even a question here. I mean, when you talk about, first of all, I think Spo's pep play in the fourth quarter, as we've noticed, and he did it in the bubble too, but now he's using it with Lowry as, the point guard screening for Jimmy. And we talked about it plenty. He tries to get the switch on the smaller player. And if not, he's still able to kind of turn the corner, even if he isn't able to get the switch. So I think we're going to see a lot of that in the playoffs, in the crunch time offense. But as far as Bam, like, he should absolutely be a part of it more. And we talked about it before. It's like, it shouldn't just be plays for Jimmy and Tyler to get going and get their own bucket. Like, I just think they could run a lot of what they do throughout the game in the fourth quarter, whether it be the handoff or not. Like, anything that gets Bam going is a good idea because the dude is a walking mismatch. So I think trying to get him in certain positions that they get him in throughout the game, specifically with Lowry back, and they're running more of their playbook from this season as opposed to the last couple. So I just think, like, getting Bam more involved in those fourth quarter opportunities is kind of essential at this point. I think they should be doing that stuff now so that he's getting more used to it, kind of winding up into the playoffs. I just think, like, between the mid-range shot, between him being able to get to the basket, the tight handle he has for a big, like, there's a lot of stuff you can do there. Obviously, him as a screener and roller, that's a given at this point. Like, the fact that he's so versatile, not only on defense, but on offense, I think is something that's going to be used by Spo in the playoffs. I just think, they could use it a little bit more right now. I feel like they're in a place where they already know what works. They already know that they're really good. And we've already seen Spo play around with other stuff like Bam and Dedmon minutes. But as far as like playbook stuff, getting Bam going in the fourth quarter and some of those minutes, I think that's probably the best idea that they can go with going into the playoffs. I feel like you get him as confident as possible and, no ceiling, like Leif likes to say.
Right. And I couldn't agree with you more. And it boils down to some of this, like, the guys who are guarding Bam, they're not respecting his jump shot. Like, they're way off of him. Like, I saw someone on the I can't remember who, and shout out to Fez, who's been a long-standing member of Heat Twitter. Because when I asked him what was the uptick in Bam's performance, he just said culture, and I agreed with him. But that's just a little shout out there. Like, when you watch the Brooklyn game, they were sagging way off of Bam. He had that jump shot all day. So, like, I think the next evolution is him just not even thinking about it and going up. But this is another thing that I think we should remember as the playoffs get closer. Certain matchups are going to require certain things from different players, right? So if they get matched up with Philly and you are asking Bam to take care of Embiid for an entire series, I don't think that that's the series where we need Bam to get 20 field goal attempts per game because of what he has to do defensively. Now, there could be cases to be made for putting the pressure on Embiid and getting him in foul trouble. So picking your spots, I'm all about it. But in a matchup like that, I think you'd have to look for your scoring elsewhere to some degree. And then there's other matchups like, how about the Celtics, since they got Daniel Tice back, that he could absolutely dominate. So I just think that the late game stuff, Bam not even thinking twice on pulling up on some of those shots, and let's live and die with some of the results on that, because nobody else is shooting that much better in the clutch anyway on this team. And then just remembering that different matchups are going to require different things from Bam as we get closer to the playoffs.
I think the one thing that is in Bam's favor and in the Heat's favor here is that I think Jimmy wants Bam to become this player and has been consistent about the fact that he wants him to be that player.
Of course.
But I don't think that Jimmy is going to cede some of the stuff in the last couple of minutes until Bam really goes and gets it. Like, that is the next step. because Jimmy has still kind of held on to the throttle on that. And I do think he'll give it up to Kyle more, but I don't get the sense. You don't see Jimmy feeding Bam down the stretch of games. That's never been really a thing. I think if Bam starts to show that he'll do it, I do think Jimmy will give up on some of that responsibility. I just don't. I think it's been a little of both of them. I think Kyle is intelligent enough. Well, I know he is. Okay. And we've seen it, to know that their ceiling at the end of games is higher playing through Bam more than it is playing through Jimmy and Jimmy taking step backs. Okay. Jimmy going to the basket like he did the other night is another thing, but the step back jumper for Jimmy should never have to be a thing with this roster at the end. It just shouldn't. I mean, they have enough options. Okay. Whether it's you're running dribble handoffs for shooters, or you got PJ Tucker in the corner, you can do drive and kick, or whether or not, again, it's as you're talking about the screen and roll with Bam, there are enough options here that they should not have to go to. That should not happen ever with this team. And that's why it may not be one guy, but Bam inserting himself into the mix here is critical for them. All right. We do want to mention before we go, our product code again, 5RSN. Again, you can use that at Vord. At Vord VPN, or excuse me, NordVPN. I'm going to get it right here by the sixth time I read it. NordVPN.com, but also at therapistpreferred.com for 25% off, manscaped.com for 20% off, and I'll get through this one today. And also getsolis.com for 10% off. Okay, again, that's 5RSN, getsolis.com, manscaped.com, and also therapistpreferred.com. All right, have a good day, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Five on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.